Read the book The Cost of Coding by Dr. Ruggieri, who discusses surgery as a multi-billion-dollar industry within the U.S. He talks about how becoming a surgeon took a lot of years of dedication, sacrifice, debt, and with all that sacrifice, he earns a large salary, which I think is appropriate due to the years of sacrifice and expertise he took the time to become a surgeon. When he talks about training, he talks about how training has changed over time. So training in the U.S. after 2003 now focuses on restrictions of time and how surgeons aren't able to get as much experience than surgeons before 2003. He also talks about how surgeons now don't follow their patients all the way through the whole process and now become more shift workers, which leads to potentially poor care because they're handing their patients off to partners that they might not even know what the quality of care they provide. In addition, he talks about how physicians now are employed by health systems and not are self-employed anymore. So the self-employed physicians can dictate their own schedules, can also dictate where they practice, and can dictate their fee schedule, but that is no longer the case. Most surgeons, because they need the referrals, are part of health systems now, and because of that, they don't have the headache of private practice, but they also usually have a quota that they have to make. This quota can also become critical because if you're not close to your quota, then you might potentially do surgeries that might not be needed to make the quota. So it also raises that question of quality care. In addition, it brings about referral patterns and turf wars that occur since Affordable Care Act brought about health systems purchasing all types of physicians from primary care all the way up to specialty surgeons. Now they control the entire referral pattern as well as the revenue cycle. And because of that, they've created these turf wars among entities and within communities where there isn't the camaraderie of sharing or improving patient care. It is maintaining your health alliance. And I have seen this firsthand as a competitor referred a patient to us for a service line that they were just beginning because they were worried about the concern of the safety and outcome of the patient, and that physician suffered a pretty harsh reprimand for referring outside of their entity. In addition, Dr. Ruggieri talks about the sticker shock of billing and how transparency in the billing in the U.S. healthcare system is needed. He discusses Mr. Wilkie's and his neighbor who had the exact same surgery at two different facilities and how their bill was $13,000 different. This $13,000 speaks to how hospitals bill and how they have no transparency on their fee schedule. And even when he reviewed the bill, he had a difficult time trying to figure out what they billed for. So something within the U.S. that billing transparency is definitely needed. He also discusses the medical device in this country, which is a $150 billion industry and is very lucrative for the hospitals and the medical device companies. He talks about how these devices come to market, sometimes on the 501(k) process with limited research behind them, but they come to the market because they are similar to a device that's already present on the market, so they get FDA approval. I have a little differing opinion on this because I do clinical research and I perform IDE trials, which is investigation device exempt trials, which are rigorous, prospective, randomized, usually double-blind trials that truly look at the outcomes and if they are better for patients and safe for patients to be on the market. But in contradictory to that, he talks about the robot equipment that made it to the market in the U.S. with almost no research behind it, very limited, and definitely not randomized or prospective. And they had poor outcomes and poor cost analysis associated with it, but there's no research to back that up or support that, and it was just brilliant marketing that was effective that was allowing it to penetrate the U.S. healthcare system. And finally, Dr. Ruggieri talks about quality of how it should be transparent for surgical sales, how patients should be aware of which physicians have better skills than other physicians and the quality of care they provide. But how do we measure quality when your skill set isn't necessarily correlated to if a patient will have complications? We have a population that is getting older, that is more obese, has more chronic conditions, and is less healthy, and a larger population of uninsured patients that do not seek care. So how do we judge a surgeon on skill set when there's already a risk stratification that exists from the moment the patient walks in the OR? All these factors of quality, billing transparency, turf wars of referring patients to physicians purely on health system alliances are all matters that we need to evaluate in the healthcare system, because truly these impact the quality of care, and they impact outcomes, and they sometimes potentially increase cost, and we need to figure out a way to manage these without it having a negative impact on patients' care.